Welcome back to the channel, guys. How are you doing? Sorry, I have not been here for quite a while. I took a bit of a break. I've also been making things like this. I'll insert a clip of what I've been making. I've gotten into resin, so I'm quite into that at the minute. So I've started an Etsy shop. Just general things, you know, keeping my mind busy. Things like this. See, this is what I've been making. So anyway, I feel a lot better now. I'm here to present you with our next case. So our next case is pretty gruesome, so disclaimer. This video is for mature audiences only, as we discuss pretty gruesome shit. So if you don't like that kind of stuff, please join us for the next video, which will probably be gruesome as well, but hey, this is a true crime channel, so try the next one out or watch one of our old ones. If you're here and you like the gruesome parts of the stories, there's a cat tail, please click subscribe, like this video, go watch the other videos. Okay, so our video today is about someone called Edward Gein. If you've watched films such as Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Silence of the Lambs, Psycho, even American Horror Story, you will know or be familiar with his kind of work. Or you may not know this, but those are the roles that he inspired, basically. So those characters in those programs and movies were inspired by him, basically, and if you've ever seen them, then you know really what's going to expect, because those films are pretty gruesome. So we'll start off with the family, because family's family, we've got to know where these people come from, right? So there was a woman called Augusta and a man called George, and they lived in Wisconsin. So Augusta was quite really strict. She was brought up in a strict household. She was beaten by her dad because if she just strayed, and that's pretty much Augusta. She was strict religious, strict, pretty much like an army sergeant. And George was a bit of a pushover, basically, and that's why Augusta liked him. It was reported that George was an alcoholic, and the only time he had any courage to stand up for himself from Augusta was when he was drunk. So he drank quite a lot, and when he'd finished at the pub he would go home and beat her. So it was quite a toxic marriage. So yeah, Augusta was quite verbally abusive towards George, telling him that he was no good and everything. And George worked many jobs. He was like a railroad person and a salesperson and all this, but he could never really hold him down because of his drinking. So in January of 1902, Augusta gave birth to a son called Henry. So that was the first son that they gave. I can't imagine anybody who in that much of a relationship, that kind of relationship, wanting to have any children, right? In 1906, Edward was born. He was the closest to his mother. Now in 1915, somehow Augusta managed to convince George to move to a farm in Plainfield in Wisconsin, and he agreed, and they all moved there. Them two and the two boys, Henry and Edward, they moved there, and they set up in a farmhouse in Plainfield in Wisconsin. Augusta thought that every woman was, well, this is what she told the boys, that every woman was a natural prostitute and was the work of the devil, basically, and if the boys ever made friends with anybody, she would pretty much go at them, hit them, shout at them, and basically tell them that they can't have friends because everybody is the devil. That's how strict she was. She didn't want the boys to have friends, didn't want the boys to have any social life. Now Henry, when he grew up, got to be a bit older, he didn't like this. He met a woman and he moved in with her, and he was worried for his brother Edward, because he felt like he was basically being institutionalized, kind of like thing, by his mother. He was too obsessed with his mother, and Henry fed him loads of bits and nasty stuff about his mother to try and get Edward to come away. They weren't allowed, when they were in school, they weren't allowed to go and play out with the boys or the girls or anything. They had to go home from school straight away, do the chores, go to bed, do the same thing every day. So yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. Edward seemed to be a little bit weird. Everybody thought he was a bit strange just because he had this thing where he would all of a sudden just burst out laughing at random times, and he would say it's the voices in his head, which we've all been there. We've all thought of something that was funny from a week or so ago and you've just started laughing to yourself. If you haven't, you need to get some funnier friends. So on April the 1st in 1940, George dies. Obviously we don't know why he died, and that left the money coming in at being nothing, because George would go out and he'd be at work all the time. They'd hardly ever see him. So Henry and George then had to go out and get small jobs, and they did like little odd jobs around the town. So if somebody needed the garden doing, they'd go and do it for them, and they'd obviously pay them a little bit of money that they needed and whatnot. I say whatnot a lot. I'm sorry. I don't know why I say whatnot a lot. Whatnot a lot? I digress. Anyway, so yeah, obviously doing these jobs, this is where Henry met his girlfriend, wife-to-be, whatnot, and he decides to move in with her, to the total disgrace of his mother. Obviously she thinks all women are prostitutes and whatnot. Keep saying whatnot. And Henry carried on working on the farm to help Edward out because, well, he was still part of the family. He's got to help. Just because he's moved out doesn't mean to say that he doesn't really like them, even though he's been spreading all these bad things to Edward about his mum. So on May 16th in 1940, they being Henry and Edward were burning like foliage and stuff off the farm to get ready for the farming season probably, and the fire got out of control. So the fire brigade were called, and Edward was like, well, my brother's missing, I don't know where my brother is. He was helping me, then the fire got out of control, I've not seen him since. So the fire brigade do a search of the farmland and they find him face down, and it was thought to be that he died of heart failure, but there were also bruises on his head, but they were overruled, or I don't know what's the word. They were dismissed anyway, nothing. They just thought, well, he's been in a fist fight with somebody, which is not out of the question. Somebody punches you in the face, you're gonna get a punch back, right? So yeah, they rule out any foul play, and the coroner says that he died of asphyxiation from the smoke inhalation that he, obviously from the big fire, because I don't know if you've ever seen a fire in a field, but they get big fast and they spread quite fast, especially if it's in summer and it's dry, which in America it's always pretty much always dry, right? So that happened. So Augusta had lost her husband and her son, her firstborn, and then tragedy would strike the family again. Bearing in mind that Edward and Augusta have always been close, they've been like best friends, he idolised her and he'd do anything for her. So he was quite happy that his brother had gone after all the stuff he'd been saying, and now Edward would be the favourite because he's the only one living left in the family, right? A year later, in 1941, Augusta had a stroke and Edward took care of her. He doted on her, looked after her, did everything for her. But nothing was ever good enough for Augusta. She would berate him and call him names, tell him that he's a weakling and that he would never survive without her. But he didn't do anything. He took it on the chin and he looked after her. Augusta died in December of 1945 and Edward was heartbroken. He didn't know what to do with himself. He had nobody now. His dad had gone, his mum had gone, he possibly killed his brother because knowing what we know now, then that's a high possibility that he did. And everybody in the village always thought that he was a little bit simple. So, and they never really saw him while his mother was alive in the village, but when she died, he would frequent the town a little often to do some chores or to go for the occasional beer in Mary Hogan's tavern. If you don't know what a tavern is, it's like a old age pub basically, and I do believe that they have like rooms upstairs to rent that you can go and sleep in if you wanted. So when his mother died, he would go into the town and start doing odd jobs for everybody just to keep himself busy. The house that he lived in, obviously there was just him living there now, and he, strangely enough, he boarded up the whole of the house except for the kitchen area and another small room, and that's all he lived in of the house. His mother's room was kept pristine, just like she had it on the day that she died. So he kept that, shut it off to the world. Nobody was allowed in there. He had his kitchen. It was called a summer kitchen because it was really on the outside of the house. I suppose it's like a conservatory type thing on the outside of the house. I don't know. Not sure what a summer kitchen is really. But yeah, that's where he lived. He lived in that, and he had his little room with his bedroom. And that's the only time. If you've seen the house, it's absolutely huge. And he just lived in those 2 rooms basically, and all the rest of the house was filled with rubbish. Even the bits that he lived in, they're absolutely piled high with rubbish, dust, dirt, all sorts, except for his mother's room. His mother's room was kept clean, tidy and lovely. So Mary Hogan, the woman looked after I think she owned it. She owned the tavern. She went missing. Yeah, she went missing, and the only thing that was left of her was a pool of blood. Okay, is that not suspicious to anybody that someone's gone missing? There's a pool of blood. It's a bit suspicious to me, don't you think? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? But yeah, she went missing. Just a pool of blood. Everybody's a bit blasé about it, and Edward would joke that Mary was staying at his house overnight for a few days, wink wink, and people are like, all right, it's a bit of a sick joke, Eddie, good old Eddie, that's a bit of a sick joke, buddy, but sure, okay, that's you're weird. He can't have done anything to her. He might be a bit of a weirdo, but he's a bit of a simpleton too, how wrong they were. So yeah, they pretty much brushed it off. And then there was another woman who disappeared on November the 16th, and Bernice Warden, who was the owner of Warden's hardware store in the town, on November the 16th, 1957, went missing. And her son Frank obviously didn't know about this. Nobody knew about it, but they all thought, well, nobody's opened up the hardware store, where is she? So anyway, Frank came. He'd been deer hunting all day, and he came to town. He went to go home, so we thought on his way home he'll just pop in to the hardware store to see how his mother's doing. And she wasn't there. And he thought, well, that's very strange because the front door's open, the back door's open. Where is she? So he starts walking to the register, and he sees a pool of blood and a drag mark towards the exit. And he's like, okay then, this is a bit suspicious. So he goes over to the register and sees a receipt on the counter for a gallon of antifreeze. And the receipt's made out to Edward Gein. And he's like, right, good old Eddie boy knows something, is going to give me some answers, and we're going to solve this. So he goes to the police, tells them, they go to the crime scene where the blood is, and basically decide amongst themselves, these 2 policemen, let's go question Eddie. Don't know why I'm calling him Eddie. Let's go question Ed. So they do. They go to his farmhouse, and one of them walks in, and they stood there looking. in this like summer kitchen, and one of the police officers feels something brush against his arm, and he's like, must be a curtain or something hanging up. So he turns around and he is faced with something horrific, guys. They're hung up on like a pulley system. I don't know, I think it might have been one of those really old washing lines that they used to have in the kitchens back then. If I can find a picture, I'll put it here. But she's hung up, but what he sees is beneath, hung up by her feet, hung, drawn and quartered. If y'all don't know what that means, then guys, she was cut. She was cut from a pelvic bone all the way to her chest. And it would turn out that Edward Gein was taking out of her organs and letting the body drain, you know, like they do with cows and stuff in a butcher's shop. Yeah, that's not the only thing they found. So obviously it's not funny. I know it's not funny. These two, you can imagine the reaction that any normal person would have seeing that. These two policemen get out there fast and they call for backup. But then in come plodding along 12 other policemen, and what they find, let me tell you guys, is not good, not nice. Nothing's nice. If you find a body hanging, you'd think that's the worst you could get. And once I tell you all of this that they find, you'd think to yourself, what the hell? This can't be real. I'm not going to show the pictures, but you can Google the pictures. There is plenty of pictures, people. Plenty. And I'm not going to put them up here because I don't really want to do that to you. I'll gladly list things for you, but I've seen some YouTube videos that will gladly put this up, and I don't really think, just in case anybody that's about 10 years old or whatnot stumbles onto this video, I don't want it on this channel. So, not that this channel is for 10-year-olds, never has been, never will be, but yeah, it sometimes happens. Not even 10 years old, even if they were 14 years old, I won't want them finding it. So Ed Gein's house would be known as the Ed Gein's House of Horrors, and this is why. In that house, the policeman found skulls made into soup bowls. If you've watched American Horror Story, Asylum, I think it is, yeah it is, the doctor, not the doctor, what is he, a psychiatrist? He was based off of him, I'm pretty sure of it. So yeah, they found skulls made into soup bowls. I mean, why would anybody want a skull? Fair enough if it's a plastic one or a porcelain one that's been made by humans, but not a real skull. They found a chair upholstered with human skin, so like the seat of it, I can show a picture of that because it just looks like a normal chair. So you can see the seat of it's like just human skin. It's a bit gross, right? Not the worst of it though. Not the worst of it. They found lampshades, you know, your average little lampshade made out of skin. He'd sewn it into a lampshade and put it on his lamps. I don't know how much things cost back then, but I'm pretty sure that killing somebody and making the lampshade out of their skin's not worth it. I'm sure you can get like a lampshade for £5 from Dunelm or something, not sure, but I'm pretty sure you can. B&M bargains, £1. They also found a box full of human noses. So you know that joke where they go, got your nose? He was the king of that joke, but he actually had the freaking noses. One that did make me think a bit strange. He had a whole belt, you know, a belt. Yeah, belt that goes on your jeans, yeah. Made out of your nipples. Women's nipples. It had a belt buckle and everything. So he'd cut these nipples out, put it on a belt. Not kidding. I'm not even kidding. That's not the last of it. Not at all. He had a shoebox full of dried women's genitalia. He was making a shirt. In fact, no, I think he made the shirt out of human skin, and on it he had sewn someone's breasts onto it, and he'd made a pair of leggings as well. And obviously Ed Gaines was caught and he was jailed for this, and later on he would say that he would dress up in these things that he had made because he wanted to be his mother, which is kind of like, okay, you're obviously not all there, you miss your mother, you want to be close to her, so you've done all this to make yourself feel a bit better. Sure. He did say that the only two people that he killed was Bernice and Mary. He would only admit to Mary's murder 10 years after he was caught. And he said the rest of the bodies came from the local cemetery, but he didn't like how the dead skin, the old skin that had been in the graves, how it worked basically. It wasn't stretchy enough, so he needed fresh skin, so that's when he decided to murder. And he had the help to dig up these people from a graveyard worker called Gus. He did not have any role in killing people and making these garments and home goods. Can you imagine going to Next and just a whole section inspired by Edward Gaines, and just having a whole section of like skin lampshades and nipple belts? Oh, what you wearing, Holly? Oh, it's a belt made out of nips. No. Can you imagine? Oof. Can you imagine walking into that house? Anyway, they finally found Bernice's head. I also forgot to tell you, he had a wall with 9 faces nailed to it. So he'd like cut people's faces, peeled them off and nailed them to his wall, right? And they found Bernice's head inside of a burlap sack. They found Mary's face in a plastic bag. He had skulls on his bedposts. Whew. And in the fridge the police found organs, human organs, and on the stove they found a heart. So they do believe that he was going to eat the organs, and they do believe that there was 15 bodies in there altogether. In Bernice's head, I forgot to mention that there were nails in her ears that had been hammered in and like a string attaching them. And Edward said that he was going to use it as a decoration, like a hanging decoration. He had made Bernice's head into a freaking bauble. So, you know. So anyway, he gets caught, he gets arrested, he gets sent to trial, he gets done for 1 count of murder. And 10 years after this, he admits to murdering Mary. And he went to prison, and that's the end of that. Whew. So now if you think back to all these Texas Chainsaw Massacre stuff, obviously Leatherface and American Horror Story. I do believe on American Horror Story he had a lampshade made out of nipples. I'm back now, and this is my video for this week, and I'm sorry I've been away. I needed a bit of a space and I wanted to get this resin art sorted, so if you do want to purchase anything, I shall put the link in the description. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want something that's not so murdery, creepy and gory, then please go and visit my other channel all the way over that I do with my friend Elmo. Take a look at those videos I have done. There's a couple of murder videos, well, true crime videos on there. Also, thank you for watching. Thank you for letting me reach, well, not even letting me, but to the 260 subscribers. Thanks so much. I mean, it doesn't seem like a big deal when you think of all the other people who've got thousands, but to me it's a lot. 260 people are interested in these stories and interested in watching my face for a substantial amount of time telling these stories. So, you know, hopefully I will get back into the swing of things and start uploading a bit more Obviously from the 4th of August I am back at work after all this time in lockdown, so I shall start trying to upload. I usually upload once a week, every Tuesday, obviously, for True Crime Tuesday. Ding 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 ding. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. Give it a like, subscribe, be kind to people. Don't go making lampshades out of people's skin. It's a bit creepy. You might get done for it, you might go to jail for it, you know. Couldn't say for sure. Just don't do it. I shall see you all next week, guys. Thanks for watching.